Swayam Prabha. Digital India. Educated India.
Well, in continuation of understanding over the different toxic compounds, we saw pesticides. Now we will just look on to the metals. Metals, particularly mercury. Mercury created a serious problem in Japan called Minamata Bay disease, where millions of people, not millions, lakhs of people died and were troubled with mercury poisoning. And this was first noticed in a young girl when the doctor took the blood sample and checked for mercury. It is somewhere around 10 ppm, milligram per liter. The mercury level should be 0.001 ppm and it is 100 folds time, and it has disturbed the uh, neural and nephrological system, and that created a big accident of mercury poisoning, mercury tragic episode of poisoning in Japan. Similarly, in Japan, the rice was contaminated with cadmium, and the rice fields were, what to say, that contaminated with cadmium effluents, which got gradually deposited in the growing rice. And when people consumed, they had a trouble called itai disease, and it was paining the joints and other thing. Ouch, ouch disease they used to call. So this is one of the other episode with cadmium. Third thing is nitrate. Nitrate. In fact, we have seen in the nitrogen cycle, nitrate can get easily converted into nitrite. When nitrate components are being added into the drinking water, very particularly because of the agricultural activity, release of nitrates through the lakes and other thing, it can lead to a syndrome called methemoglobinemia. Methemoglobinemia, where the baby appears to be blue. It loses the capacity to transfer the oxygen. Blood carrying oxygen through hemoglobin is being disrupted. That is one of the condition observed in this blue baby syndrome. The picture clearly says that. Another thing is fluoride, which I have been discussing. Fluoride in drinking water, it causes lot of defects in the teeth and bones. The picture very clearly says that it is a typical condition of dental fluorosis. Even the tooth will have small holes. So the tooth enamel gets disturbed. Calcium is replaced by fluorides and creates a problem. Well, understanding all the toxic effects of the toxic components which are present in the water leading to water pollution, how best you can minimize or control the water pollution. See, whenever we say water pollution, it has to be prevented, reduced, and treatment measures could be applied. That is the main logic behind it. Now, first point, we will just see that how best we can use judiciously the agrochemicals. How much amount of chemical for a fertilizer or pesticide is required for a particular size of the land, for 1 hectare of the land. How much amount of pesticides and chemicals have to be applied. First thing, the farmer has to submit the soil sample to the agricultural department, where they look on to the NPK levels and other micronutrient levels. Keeping that, they advise this much amount of chemicals could be applied to the environment. And also they go for an integrated pest management, where they also give fertilizers as well as pesticides to be applied. And they encourage to use nitrogen fixing plants, particularly pea plant or other thing. And integrated pest management seems, in some event, by applying pesticides, they kill not only the targeted pests but also non-targeted organisms also die, particularly birds. By looking at the dead insects, if the bird feeds, it takes up the pesticides from the insects and leads to pesticide poisoning. So you have to have a rational use of pesticides, very particularly not only pesticides and fertilizers. You should have a judicious use of agrochemicals. Another thing is to prevent the runoff of manure. If manure is being applied over the soil, and if the soil is made ready for further sowing of the plant or the grain. Now the question is, you should have a proper drainage system so that whatever the manure that is being applied should not get washed away. So in that event, you should have a proper planting and arrangement of the crops in the field. Finally, we just go for the treatment of wastewaters. When you just look onto the treatment of wastewater, before that I'll quickly give you an overview. Treatment of wastewater involves primary, secondary and tertiary treatment, of course, which you have studied in a large scale. The primary treatment involves the settling of the wastewater because it contains settlable materials. Either it is screened and that could be scooped off, and after settling they are subjected to the addition of coagulants like alum cake or any other thing. And once that material is being added, these particles present in the water, very particularly settlable particles, they coagulate along with the coagulants and they form cakes or materials which could be gradually removed, settled and removed. This primary settled water from the sedimentation tank is taken to the secondary settling tank where it can be added with an microbial organisms to degrade the sludge. We call it as a secondary treatment or anaerobic treatment of the biological treatment of the material or the waste material sludge. And finally, it can go for tertiary treatment like RO, whatever it might be. So that is a large scale. In general, the wastewater has to be treated through primary, secondary and tertiary mechanisms as a whole. So that is a point to be noted in the case of control of water pollution. Now coming to soil pollution. Soil is the physical platform where we live in. So ultimately, this soil, if it gets affected, the basic life sustenance gets affected. Point number one. Point number two. It is the platform through which our life is anchored, not only the human life, all plants and animals. Plants are anchored only in the soil. So ultimately, if their environment is proper and clean, you can ensure that the growth of the plant or the yield or produce could be in a position to suffice the needs of the community, very particularly animal and human community who are dependent on it. So now, looking onto the soil, how it gets polluted. Two, three mechanisms are being cited, but it comes only because of the activity which we handle it without awareness. The reason for soil pollution is only because of lack of awareness, we spill the waste into the surrounding environment. Domestic garbage, very particularly non-biodegradable. See, domestic garbage include glass, plastics, cans, their caps, cloth rags, even a broken rubber ball, toys, everything. Problem is, we just like that dump it in a waste container, or we just dump it in a black color polythene bag and give to the municipal person who is coming to clean the environment every day morning. This is a common scene, you observe it. Point number one is, we don't segregate into biodegradable and non-biodegradable. This is the biggest issue. If you could able to keep the kitchen waste into a separate thing, it could be composted, vermicomposted, and energy could be derived. But none of us fail to practice. In the sense, are happy to practice it, and as a result, we add more amount of waste to the environment. Second thing, leachates from the dumping sites and sewage tanks. If the wastes are being collected, they are dumped at one particular place. So these dumping sites have got good amount of space where the wastes are being dumped. Over a period of time, because of the rain or other thing, some amount of leachate might come in. It means that the washing might come in. So that might lead to soil contamination. Industrial waste, you find a variety of industries, a laundry list of industries. Let it be a paper and pulp industry, tannery, textile, steel, pharmaceutical industry, food processing industry. For example, the tomato sauce preparing industry, cement industry, thermal, nuclear power plants, mining industries, variety of industries leave the pollutants into the soil, and as a result the soil gets polluted. So if you just look on our domestic activity and industrial activity are the major contributors for soil pollution. In addition to that, pesticide residues which come from the agricultural activity. So these are the four major categories of which the domestic household activity, that is the municipal activity, and the industrial activity occupy a higher percentage. Now, what are the effects? Straight away, we'll go to the effects. So, first thing, it reduces the soil fertility. In the sense, a soil should have. I've been repeatedly admonishing a case that the soil fertility is based on the major and the micronutrients. If the major and micronutrients are less in the thing, you have to apply fertilizers to enhance the growth of the plants and provide adequate support. And as a result of the soil pollution, because of the agricultural activity, we lose the soil fertility. The nitrogen fixing capability of the plants gets reduced. It leads to increased erosion. As a result, the top layer is washed. The nutrients are washed away. As a result, soil and nutrients get lost. They get deposited in tanks and reservoirs. That leads to the damage of tanks and reservoirs because of the corroding activity. You find at the end a reduced crop yield and an imbalance in the soil flora and fauna because of the nutrient availability. The organisms which could be able to survive in the tough environment comes, otherwise the other organisms die. So an imbalance in the plant and animals is seen. As a whole, it disturbs the total ecological balance of the environment. Now, if you just look on to the industrial effects, first we saw the agricultural effects, next the industrial effects. So many of the dangerous chemicals gradually percolate or seep into the underground water. As a result, the underground water is contaminated. It is a precursor for the groundwater pollution. This leads into an ecological imbalance because of the release of pollutant gas, which over a period of time gradually settle in the soil. And the radioactive rays coming from the radioactive elements natural decay or from the nuclear energy wastes, that is also being released. Another point is because of waterlogging, you find the sodic contaminants, very particularly sodium chloride, get aggravated, and that leads into an increased salinity. As a result, the crops cannot grow. It ultimately hampers the growth of vegetables and you find a reduced vegetation. So, industrial effects, if you just look onto that, industry is related with agriculture and it is related with, so not only with soil pollution, goes with the groundwater, air pollution, they get washed. So, air, water, soil are more or less interacting with each other for their regular balance, and the whole regular balanced cycle is disturbed. Now the question comes, how to control soil pollution? See, if you just look on air, water, soil pollution, it is a common, on an academic perspective, they ask a student whether the student is aware of the cause, source and effect and control. So that is the prime aim of this module, whether the student is aware of what is pollution. So how he is able to recall the knowledge of various types of pollution and produce it to the examiner. So on an academic point of view, this is quite important. The effluents should be treated. The solid waste has to be properly collected and disposed of, whatever it might be we have listed out. When you say the effluents, the solid materials or other thing, initial segregation is required. You have to properly segregate into degradable and non-degradable. Today you find wherever in the railway station or hospital or other thing, they have got green color, red color containers and gives an indication that the red contains non-degradable materials, hazardous materials. The green color contains the biodegradable materials. The yellow color contains the recyclable materials. So automatically the biodegradable organic waste can be used for the generation of biogas, which we have seen. Floating type biogas generator we have seen. And whatever the cattle dung is used, it can be used for methane production, very particularly for gobar gas. Another thing is, these days, whenever a soil is contaminated, they use microbes, which we call it as bioremediation. The microbes can release some exudates called biosurfactants that could be used in cleaning the metals, oil in the environment. So microbial applied cleaning is practiced to reduce the soil pollution. That we call it as bioremediation. In addition to that, we can also go for composting of the waste materials, vermicomposting, that is also being practiced. In fact, that is a larger area to be discussed. In fact, we have discussed in the earlier thing whenever you handle about the waste. Now coming to the noise pollution. See, air, water, soil could be visibly seen. Noise pollution, it comes as an unwanted sound, disrupts the quality and goes off. Where is the sound gone? It has got vanished in the air. So it means that you cannot literally pursue, but the effects still linger. This is the problem with the noise pollution. Air pollution you can see, it could be a dirt or a dust. Soil pollution you can see, you could find a solid waste, empty materials, dirt and other thing, dust has been there. Water, the water is looking turbid, it is having a color, the pH is changed, the taste is different. All these things you can visually see. The problem with the noise pollution is you cannot see, only hear it, and where the pollution has gone, it has just vanished. So this is an underrated environmental problem. Another thing is noise comes actually from a sound. If the sound goes beyond its capability, in a sense, goes beyond the capability of human hearing, we call it as a sound. Every day the sound is creating an impact in you, which we are not in a position to understand it. Well, if you just look on to the decibel levels of common noise sources, whisper only 20 decibel levels. Well, coming to the decibel, decibel is a term used to measure the sound. So the length is measured in meter, kilometer, centimeter, whatever it might be. So similarly, the noise is measured in decibel level. So if you just look on 100 decibel levels comes with a jointed planer in a chainsaw, or in the case of a heavy truck traffic you find 80 decibel levels because of the horns they use. Well, if you just look on to the decibel levels produced by a jet aircraft engine at 500 meters, it is somewhere around 130 decibel levels. Beyond 140 decibel levels of a jet engine, our eardrum ruptures. So our hearing range is maximum up to 60 decibels, 40 to 60 decibels. Even research reports say that at 40 to 60 decibels of continuous hearing the sound, it may produce headache, dizziness and other things. Now, if you just look on to the sources of noise pollution, it is obviously from the transportation systems. The construction of buildings, highways, where they use bulldozers to clear the vegetation initially, what to say that, drill the roads, pave the roads with the tar, usage of air compressors, dump trucks, pavement breakers, all these causes high noise. In addition to that, industrial noise, very particularly whenever they are using these pneumatic chippers or saw machines to cut the materials. In addition to that, our domestic activities, very particularly in the name of partying, we keep loudspeakers, plumbing, boilers, generators, even drilling machines, air conditioners over a period of time give a continuous humming sound. The movement of fans, vacuum cleaners, all these things are somewhat annoying sound. Another point is our customs, very particularly Diwali or even the event of any death or many marriage, we use crackers and we use a lot of orchestra, which is maybe appropriate to the situation, but it creates enormous amount of noise. Especially during Diwali, we use lot of firecrackers, which creates not only sound or noise pollution but also air pollution. Point number one. Point number two, many of the crackers, it frightens. The sound might be amusing at the moment, but it frightens not only humans but also very many life, including dogs, cats, any other rodents. They get feared because of the sound. Even these crackers were used to chase the wildlife, elephants and other thing, as a preventive measure. But in the event of playing crackers during Diwali, many zones you find high noise levels, and Delhi is reported to have a high noise level during Diwali. And if you just look onto the effects could be of major two types. One is physiological in the body metabolism. Second is psychological in our mind change or the mental levels. The changes happens. High blood pressure, dilation of pupils, stress-related illness, redness, rashness, insomnia. That is in the sense you could not able to sleep, or sometimes it might even lead into somnambulistic. Somna means sleep. Ambulistic means ambulance movement. In the night you go for a sleep. Ultimately you may lose the hearing capability, hearing loss, and as a result you are stressed. As a result we call it as a psychological change where the productivity or the capacity to do the work continuously in a focused manner gets lost, and memory loss, severe depression, panics. These are some of the psychological damages. These psychological damages start from the children. If there is a big sound or a loud noise, the babies or the children, infants get shrilled. That creates a psychological disturbance in their mind. Whenever they hear a sound, they cry. And many occasions you find because of playing crackers, birds, animals are being flying away because of the noisy sound. It disturbs a lot of animals and it annoys the animals. And even in the environment where they use radars, this radar frequencies disturbs the whales. That is also been recently found at Japan. So that is these are some of the effects at a research level. In general, the metabolism and the psychological activities and the productivity of the humans capability is disturbed because of the noise pollution. Now these are some of the standards being kept for the noise pollution. We categorize into silence, residential, commercial, industrial area. During the daytime in a silent zone. The silence zone could be a school, it could be a house or a hospital. Residential area, of course, it doesn't require an explanation, where people live. And the commercial area like malls or other thing. Industrial area which are being totally separated out. But the problem behind us, in many of the cities, all these are being mixed up. We could not find a separate zoning. Of course, the recently developed metropolitan cities try to keep the industries away from the city. They try to keep it in the outskirts of the city. If you just look onto the silence zone that is being given by the Ministry of Environment and Forests and Climate Change, so it around 100 meters surrounding the hospitals or education institutions or court, it should not go beyond 50 decibels. So bursting of crackers is not permitted in this zone. Use of vehicle horns, loudspeakers are banned in these zones. But many times these pollution levels are violated because to celebrate something or victory, they play crackers, they keep loudspeakers and go for a celebration. Many occasions it is being disturbed. It is a fact and we have to understand that. And another thing is in industrial area, in night time it should not go beyond 65 decibels. It means that 65 is the maximum limit we permit, 65 to 75. So at many occasions, these workers who are working in the night, because of the calm and composed environment, they should not disturb the surrounding, and it should not disturb the worker's capability and his efficiency during the work. Well, if you just look on to the control measures, if you just look on to the control measures, first thing we go for planting bushes and trees, regular servicing and tuning of automobiles. Many people use horns, continuous honking, or they try to keep silencers, wolf horns. Very many stylish horns are there. Silencers, cut mobiles are there, which gives a sound. And the buildings can be have some noise absorbing material pasted in the walls. It could be a wooden window ceilings or other thing. False ceilings which can absorb the excess vibrations. The workers may be provided with earplugs and earmuffs, and a periodical lubrication to the machinery will avoid the friction as well as the noise. And the usage of loudspeakers in crowded areas can also be minimized. And the factories and industries, of course, we don't find a planning, but logically these days the factories and industries are located far from the residential area, and to create a lot of social awareness programs, So that during Diwali, these days, the sale of crackers or the play of crackers among the children has to an extent reduced, but still the noise levels, pollution levels continue to be the same. That is the irony behind the whole thing. So noise pollution could be easily controlled. The only problem, repeatedly we have to address this is noise pollution is the only pollution where we cannot see. So we only sense it in the form of a sound. So it creates the impact and leaves. So main thing is it disturbs the psychological environment. That is the reason why people are saying that we want to go to a silent place or a noise free place where we can sit and meditate. Very many things are being discussed these days. So sound vibrations aggravates our mind. That is being scientifically proved. Well, to summarize the whole thing, in fact, I mean, said in the middle of the lecture, this unit has got an idea of creating an awareness of the pollution. What is pollution? Causes, effects, and control measures on the three major air, water, soil, in addition to the soil pollution. So, if you just look on air, water, soil has more or less having a interrelated effect, while the noise pollution stands separate. And these control measures have to be prepared, and the very best thing is awareness. Whenever you have an awareness on how we are causing the pollution, we might stop the whole thing at the source level. So if you have a source level idea how to stop it with complete awareness, definitely we can all join hands together to prevent pollution and reduce pollution at the source level. Thank you. Good morning, everybody. I am Jay Kumar, Assistant Professor in Environmental Science at Geetham University, Bengaluru campus. Today, we are going to present a lecture on environmental studies on the fifth module. At the outset, I thank Dr. Balaji and Swayam Prabha for permitting me to deliver the lectures. In today's lecture, we are going to discuss on the nuclear hazards and human health with a case study on Chernobyl nuclear disaster. Well, our energy requirements are increasing, so we have to find all the best means to identify an energy resource which can suffice our needs. We have been seeing that by and large, India requires energy on a large scale owing to its population, owing to its thick population. And energy is derived from the non-renewable or rather conventional energy resources, particularly the coal-fired power plants. These coal-fired power plants has got some merits as well as lot of disadvantages in the event of producing fly ash and oxides of sulfur and nitrogen and also carbon dioxide, which are responsible for global warming and climate change. So how to suffice the energy requirements? Nuclear energy is sound to be good, and it is also found to be one of the alternate source to suffice the energy requirements. Keeping that in mind, the nuclear energy reactors came into picture. If you just look onto the background information or our understanding, we know that nuclear material means it is a radioactive substance. This radioactive substance are found in the soil. Over a period of time, they undergo natural radioactive decay. In the sense, they get gradually decomposed. In the event of decomposing, they give out radiations. So their initial structure gets modified by emanating out the radiation. That is a wonderful property. How best we can use that property? In the event of giving the radiations, can those radiation could be harnessed to produce energy? That was the talk. And in fact, if you just look on, the radioactive isotopes are more or less unstable isotopes because of the difference in the mass and the atomic number. And they give out fast moving particles, in the sense, in the event of decaying, they release out some particles. And those particles, when they are released in the event, along with the particles, radiations, high energy radiations are also being given out. Radiation, if you sense, It is a ray of energy, something like from the sunlight you get a light ray which is composed of light particles called photons. Similarly, the radioactive particles release out radiations as well as particles. So what are those particles? And these particles, rather when the radiations come out, we classify them as ionizing radiations and non-ionizing radiations. Ionizing in the sense it can create an ion or it can disturb an electron or other thing. It can has got the ability to pull out. So these are high energy electromagnetic waves and that we call it as gamma, and the heavy particles present in the radioactive substances when they are getting decayed, we call them as beta and alpha. So these particles and the electromagnetic waves have the capacity and have enough energy to pull the electron from the orbit and it can make unstable. So this is one of an important point we have to just look on to the ionizing radiations. In fact, non-ionizing radiations you can find in the cell phones. You can find in microwaves or whatever it might be. Now, when you just look onto the alpha, beta or gamma rays, these alpha and beta particles have got a variable penetration power. In the sense, something can penetrate more, some could be stopped. In the case of alpha particle, it can penetrate a paper. In the case of a beta, it can penetrate a paper. It cannot, in the sense, it can penetrate a paper and it cannot penetrate an aluminum foil. The alpha particle could be stopped by a simple paper. So it is a simple radiation. If you just look onto the gamma, it can penetrate paper and aluminum, and you require concrete slabs or lead to stop the gamma radiations. So this is what the variable penetrating power you could find in the whole thing. So the alpha can be stopped by a paper, the beta can be stopped by an aluminum sheet or a metal sheet, while the gamma particles can penetrate both paper and aluminum, and it can be stopped only by lead or a concrete material. That is the reason why our nuclear reactors are concealed in lead environment, concrete and lead environment. Now, if you just look onto the sources, it includes both natural and anthropogenic. The radioactive sources which can come through natural, it can come in the form of cosmic rays from the outer space, or it may be the radioactive radon present even in the volcanoes or in the natural environment. In the case of anthropogenic, nuclear power plants have been established and it can accidentally release the material, or in the form of X-ray missions, X-rays, diagnostic kits. Very particularly, these radioactive substances are used to diagnose cancer, very particularly bone cancer or thyroid or whatever it might be, or it may be given as an isotope to even to treat the cancer. So if there is an accidental spill in the form of these isotopes through the diagnostic kits or medical appliances, then it can lead into a spillage of the nuclear hazard to the environment. So it is very clear the sources are natural and anthropogenic. Now, if you just look on to the nuclear radiations, what effect can it give? We could understand that it is having three types of two particles and one heavy radiation. If these radiations are accidentally spilled over because of the anthropogenic activities, what effect it can manifest to humans? First thing, it destroys the capacity of cell reproduction or division. The cell, it could be a body cell or a sex cell. In the sense, we call it as a somatic cell or a reproductive cell. So the cell could not further multiply or reproduce, or it cannot increase because it ruptures the nucleus present in it. As a result, the nucleoplasm or the nuclear content itself get destroyed. Next thing, whenever you just look onto the effect, it first relates with the acute somatic effect. Somatic means bodily effects. The effects are again dependent on the dose. In the case of an X-ray, you have been just given for a fraction of second, and you have been what to say that you are exposed only for a fraction of second, provided if you have an injury in the arm or a leg or a break or whatever it might be. So you have been continuously exposed to X-rays, probably if you have gone for taking an X-ray in the any clinic or a laboratory, you can find that minimum dose is being given and immediately it is diagnosed, and these days advanced techniques have come. So the dose is very minimal. If you are continuously exposed for a high dose, then it creates a problem. Very particularly, it even leads to death. So this is what happens whenever a nuclear pollution or a bursting of a nuclear hazard happens. So it damages the bone marrow. In the bone marrow only, our immunity is present, very particularly the B cells. The B cells only just immediately try to prevent the microbes entering into our body. So these B cells are present in our blood, and immediately they act as a first line of defense against any of the microbial organisms, particularly bacteria, fungi or virus. And it also disturbs the intestinal wall. So intestinal wall is a main area where the absorption of energy from the food happens. If that is disturbed, the energy absorption, very particularly through the intestinal wall called villi, doesn't happen. And it can even disturb your skin. The skin can get inflamed. Skin cancer can happen, which we call it as an acute radiodermatitis. Now, the effects could be acute or it could be chronic, or what we can say that it is a delayed somatic effects. It can induce cancer, very particularly blood cancer, leukemia. It can disturb your eye, it can create cataract, your lens could be disturbed. It can lead to many organ failure, particularly kidney and liver. And if pregnant women are exposed, it leads to abortion because the fetus could not be in a position to withstand that high degree of radiation. The very important thing which we have to note down, the genetic effects. Genetic effects, even because of the bombing at Hiroshima and Nagasaki, the Japanese sometimes exhibit polydactyl. Polydactyl means we have got 5 fingers. Sometimes they come with 6 fingers. This is a effect that has changed the heredity of the people, and it is still passing on. So the genetic effects to the offspring of the exposed persons. So it is not only affecting that particular person, the genetic effect is disturbance is transferred to his kid, to his son or daughter. And many occasions it is irreversible, in the sense you cannot get back. It passes on to the generations like anything, and it becomes totally harmful. See, the father might not be having blood cancer, but that could be triggered in the case of a son. The son and the grandson might have a blood cancer or any other cancer. So that way, the genetic makeup itself being disturbed because of these radiations. Another thing is lymphocytes. Lymphocytes very particularly are responsible to play a major role, which are produced from the lymphs to stop the invasion of the foreign particles. Whenever a microbial organism, for example bacteria or fungi, when they release a particle called antigen. So that antigen is being released, and in turn to combat it you produce a antibody. So it is something like a proper lock and key mechanism and get eliminated. That is being taken care by these lymphocytes. And of course bone marrow, gastrointestinal, very particularly the sexual organisms, and fast growing cells. The fast growing cells in the sense hair, nails. These are the fast growing cells because the energy is transmitted even to the periphery end of the body. So the nerves, they get disturbed. And as a result, many nuclides concentrate in certain organisms. For example, iodine concentrate in thyroid gland. So you get a lot of thyroid disturbances. So it can be positively explored, but the negative effects are very high. In general, if we are exposed to ionizing radiations, it can create a bodily effect, or it can disturb our sex cells, and it can lead into cancer, and even the genetic mutations can pass over to the next generations. So this is the biggest issue. So in the sense you are totally disturbing the whole population, whole generation, because of exposing yourself to ionizing radiations from a radioactive element. Now let us look on to a small pollution case study. This is a very well-known case study, many of you know. Probably this is a standard question asked in many of the exams. What are your understandings over the Chernobyl disaster? In fact, this Chernobyl disaster happened in the year 1986. It is going to be more or less about a 2 decade. And Chernobyl is a small city located in Russia, very particularly Ukraine. The picture you can see. What happened is in the year 1986 on April 25th, they wanted to decide there may be very many turbines. See, if you just look on, initially there will be a source, that is a nuclear isotope will be kept. That should be charged, and that is being given by a electron gun or a neutron gun, we say, that impinges on this thing and the fusion reaction happens. So it's a continuous process. We will be giving the resources in the form of rods, food rods or fuel rods, we say, and there are some control rods which take the excess radiations and modulate it. In the whole event, heat is generated. If heat is generated, that can be used to boil the water and convert it into steam. The steam can rotate and it can move the turbine and it can generate electricity. So that is one of the advantage you find in the case of a Chernobyl nuclear arrangement. So what they did was they wanted to measure the amount of electricity if the still spinning turbine could produce if steam was shut off. So if steam is given, the turbine will rotate and generate electricity. If you stop the steam, what could happen? Whether with the minimum steam can it be done? So it was a test conducted at the Chernobyl nuclear power station 4. So this is what the first thing it started. So this is a typical pictorial representation of how a what to say that a nuclear power reactor happens. So I told you the first refers to the graphite moderated reactor core. In fact, that is the core. Graphite means is a thick lead material inside which the nuclear reaction happens. There are control rods to moderate the reactions. There are pressure channels where if the heat is generated, that heat could be balanced with the pressuring turbine, and there may be a high pressure and a low pressure steam turbine, and finally it can generator is there and a pump is there. There may be a steam condenser to remove the heat. Finally a cooling water is there which will take up the heat from generated from the steam turbine and it gets balanced. So every aspect has got a pressure valve which can be controlled or modulated. So I've just given a simple overview. Now coming to the Chernobyl nuclear disaster, this is the statements whatever I have given in the lecture. These are being given by the US EPA when they recorded what actually happened. So the emergency core cooling system required energy for its operation. In the sense there is a core cooling system. In the sense their reaction is happening. If the reaction is happening, heat is generated. That should be cooled down. There will be a regular system. In case if that system is not working, you keep a standby. That is called as an emergency core cooling system. And so what happened was that was put into trouble. The emergency core cooling system for the operation could provide some of the energy until another source become available. That is what the thing. This emergency core cooling system had a trouble. The amount of steam being produced was reduced by lowering the control rods into the reactor. In a sense, the amount of steam being produced because of the energy, it is raising the heat of the water, steam is produced. So they controlled the reaction. They stopped the reaction voluntarily. But when they want to stop the reaction, it should be done in a proper time period. But the test was delayed because you want some electricity. In the meantime, a new shift of workers came onto duty who are not aware of the whole story. So the reaction is going at the background with enormous amount of heat is being built up. You have closed the cooling system also. What happened next was they failed to program the computer to maintain a power. See, when electricity is generated, it has to be maintained in a proper flow. That 700 megawatts out thing, everything has to be maintained. It should be uniformly passing on to the grid. So it is all a computer control mechanism. The person who is sitting there continuously watches and monitors. So it was a computer control. They failed to program for 700 megawatts. All of a sudden, the output declined and started accumulating in the reactor. The heat started accumulating in the reactor because that heat has to be released off, converted into electricity, running the turbine, it has to go. So this happened. What happened is there was an increase in the power and many of the control rods were withdrawn. So the control rods were kept. It started heating up. The red alarm came. They removed the control rods accidentally or intentionally. We don't know. But what I find that it is totally a man-made accident. You are not completely aware what you are doing. If you are aware of the situation, you could have not removed the control rods. So, but they thought that if we remove the control rods, the energy could be dissipated. It could make to run the turbine while the water and go on. But the emergency cooling system has already failed. So this is what the biggest trouble got presented. And this is the important statement. If you just look on, this presented an immediate need. This clearly indicates that how humans are acting without awareness. Now, in the meantime, an inert gas had accumulated in the fuel rods. In fact, to control the heat, they pass xenon, an inert gas. What happened was this xenon was excited by the neutrons that is being released and slowed the rate of power increase. So in an attempt to obtain more power, the operators withdrew all the control rods. They thought that okay, the power has stopped, so we can remove the control rods and we can activate the reaction. In the meantime, this is the second serious safety violation. See, they have to shut down the reactor completely, then start it from the first. They have to cool down, then they have to start it from first. In fact, the shutdown of the many of the reactor plants or it's there, it's quite common. Reason behind is they use it for maintenance. But they thought that the electricity is required, so we can remove the control rods so more reactions can happen and it can be used to heat up the water, generate steam and do that. That is the second biggest mistake they have done. Already heat has accumulated, the emergency cooling turbine failed in the sense emergency cooling system. The water is not working. In the meantime, workers got changed. They are not aware. There was a severe power drop. Because of the severe power drop, they thought that we can do that. So initially somebody wanted to start the test and it ultimately led into a second problem. Instead of shutting down the reactor, halfway through they increased it. This is the biggest trouble you could find it. At 1 a.m., the operators shut all the emergency and turned on the 8 pumps to provide adequate cooling. So they realized that okay, something wrong. So they opened all the cooling pumps and they wanted to cool it. But in the meantime, the reactor was in the final stage of test and indicated an excessive reaction in the reactor. In the sense, they opened the cooling system. See, they started operating the pumps. When the 8 pumps are operated, more water will be flushed to the reactor so that it can get cooled down. It is something like that you are pouring water when there is a big thing. On the other hand, you are supplying the fuel to burn off. So what happens? It lead into an explosive reaction. So it is something like that you are spilling a bottle with the petrol or the thing burnt, and if you throw it on the ground or throw it away, it gives a blasting explosion. This is what actually happened with the Chernobyl nuclear disaster. Not only the energy went, in fact, all the reactive particles, beta, gamma particles got spilled in the air and radiations, the heat started going everywhere in the surrounding. Now, in spite of the warning, the operators blocked the automatic reactor shutdown because they are not aware they started the test. As a result, the power output of the reactor rose beyond its normal level. The emergency cooling system also stopped and it continued to rise, and you could find that the reactor being blasted. This is a typical picture, they keep it. The operated, in fact, they also activated the emergency system so that they can put the control rods back into the reactor and stop the fission. But in the meantime, already the reaction has started in a great extent. Problem is, fission reaction should be controlled. To control them only we keep the control rods. Here we don't keep the control rods, we have removed it. So the reaction has already started. It went into a high speed. As a result, the core reactor, the reactor bed and the rods were not properly fit. The reaction could not be stopped and it went to a booming and a blast. It was a big blast. So increased 2000 times, the fuel rods ruptured, cooling water turned into steam, the steam explosion occurred, lack of cooling water allowed the reactor to completely explode. Very simple thing is you didn't allow the cooling water to go, somewhere it is stopped and the emergency cooling system also failed. It went into a serious disaster and absolutely it is a man-made disaster without any awareness. Now, what happened in the sense, the explosion blew 1,000 metric ton of concrete roof from the reactor and the reactor caught fire. Imagine 1,000 metric ton concrete roof. It is something like you are throwing a 6 feet apartment and throwing outside. Imagine if it is being thrown out and if fire is coming like anything, it is something like more than an explosion of a volcano. So this is the worst nuclear accident recorded in Russia, and it nearly took. They say officially it took 10 days to keep under the control, but it literally took months because the reaction was still trying to emanate. It is again starting to get initiated. To put the whole thing back into picture, it literally took a year. And what happened during the Chernobyl disaster? First thing, somewhere around 1,60,000 people were evacuated. Of course, at the site, 4 people were died. That is what the report given from Russia. But if you just look on, 24,000 people received high doses of radiation, and as a result, it increased the frequency of thyroid cancer in children. Abortions were quite frequent for the next 5 years from 1987 to 1992. There was frequent abortions. Most of the flora and fauna got mutated. I told you it disturbs the nuclear material and mutations happen. So this you can see because of Chernobyl disaster. This is a piglet. So when the piglet was aborted, they could find one, two, three. You could find additional what to say that a pig has got 4 limbs. It has got 6 limbs. So mutations are quite common, and very particularly the leaves, chlorosis, all these things happen. The complete stretch of pine forest got damaged. So literally we have opened the vegetation cover. As a result, soil erosion and other additional factors came, and cancer is a very common ailment. Most of the people got cancer ailment, and even these people married the persons from other area. Even the children had thyroid cancer, had got mutations, and they have got a short lifespan. So literally it is a, I can say that it is an incident where humans caused an impact to humans themselves because of the lack of awareness. So if you just look on, nuclear energy is a fantastic energy. We can harness good amount of electricity. Only problem is when it turns to be hazard because of our unawareness, because of our lack of awareness in handling the nuclear material, it leads into a serious problem and it affects the human health drastically, driving them to even to death. Another thing, even if it is not there, death is there, mutations, cancer are a lot of heavy precursors predisposing them to death. And that is well explained by this Chernobyl nuclear disaster. This gives us a very clear lesson how a nuclear disaster can happen, how it can be stopped, how the effective reactions. In fact, it has thrown a lot of light for the scientist how to evolve a proper mechanism, how to refine the science and technology in the case of an emergency. If it fails, what could be the alternate plan we can make it? In fact, that is the lesson being given. So the take home message is, if nuclear disaster happens, how best you can do. In fact, a lot of trials or other things is being carried out. They used to give the salt or iodine tablets so that you can prevent yourself from radiations. Ultimately, it's a fantastic energy could be harnessed, but if it is used without proper awareness of technology, it can lead into a severe disaster. So that is the take home message. Thank you.